Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today a user on Reddit looks like they got a hold of one of the Rivals draft sets and they've taken photos of some of the other cards from the set. So we're going to go ahead and just take a look at the cards. I've sorted out the images and I will leave a link in the description below where you can check out that Reddit post. So we're just going to go to the cards here. So first up we have Bespin Wingguard. I believe these are all going to be neutral. So one cost, support. As an action, exhaust this support and spend one resource to force an opponent to choose and discard a card from their hand. So pretty interesting. So pay one resource to get it into play, and then if you have a resource, you can exhaust it, spend the resource, and force your opponent to discard. This could be pretty cool in draft because you're gonna play this, and then if you have just extra resources left over, you can make them discard probably one card per round with this, or multiple if you were to draft something like strategic planning. But a lot of mill decks now are running milling off the top of an opponent's deck, and getting the final cards out of your opponent's hand, it can be a little bit tricky. Let's say if they defeated your character that has discard sides on them, so let's say they defeat Padme or something like that. You can use this to get rid of the final card out of their hand. So I can see this being used in build decks, specifically hero build, because you'll be able to get this out and then use strategic planning to get multiple uses out of it. However, each time you use it, you will have to spend one resource, so that is a downside to that. So that is the Bespin Wingguard. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have our other battlefield, the Dry Fields. We saw the Sith Temple earlier in the week. So this battlefield, Dry Fields, claim, gain one resource if you have no resources. So if you're constantly spending all your resources in a round, this could be a good battlefield to get one additional resource. So you get that resource, next round you get two more. If you're always spending all of your resources, you'll basically be starting each round with three if you're constantly able to claim this battlefield. It's going to be a little bit useless if you already have a resource in your hand, so it's kind of going to be situational. So you're going to want to claim it when you have no resources. If you have a resource, you still get control. You just won't get that extra resource off of it. So that is the Dry Fields. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Emulate. This is probably one of my favorite cards from this set. So, 0 resources is an event. Turn a character die to any side if there are 2 or more copies of that character in play. So in draft, a lot of people are probably going to be drafting Anakin. So Anakin's a pretty good character. A lot of people are probably going to be using him in draft. So if I'm drafting and my friend is drafting, we both draft Anakin, I would definitely throw Emulate into my deck just because we will both have a copy of Anakin, and then I will be able to use this card to turn a character die to any side. So it's like a one-time or a one-use focus if your opponent is also running one of the same characters as you. I can also see it being used outside of draft in constructed play. So if you put it in a deck, let's say you're building a new starter set Rey Poe deck, and you know you're going to be coming across a lot of those. One of the more popular decks right now, one of the more powerful decks is New Rey, New Poe, and let's say you build that deck and you know you're going to be playing against that in a tournament or just at a casual event, it might not be a bad idea to slot a couple of these into that deck, because if you are playing a lot against the same decks in mirror matches, you'll be able to use this card to focus one of your dice to any side. So you can turn it to post special and so on. Also in draft, back to draft I should say, if you're drafted, let's say you drafted Anakin and then you opened 2 packs of legacies and you drafted 2 battle droids, you have 2 copies of the same character, so you will be able to use Emulate on one of those dice as well. So that is Emulate. One of the more interesting and probably one of my favorite cards from this set. So we're going to move into our next card. And next up we have Fight Back, 1 resource. Remove one of your dice to remove a die showing damage, either ranged, melee, or indirect. So if your opponent has, let's say, what's the resistance bomber is 6 indirect damage for a resource, and you have a blank, you can pay 1, remove that blank, and remove that big damage die. It could be, especially if they're using dice to kind of like combo together. Let's say if they have 1 regular die and a bunch of modifiers, you can use this, remove 1 of your dice, and then remove their unmodified damage to kind of break apart their combos. So they'll have to either focus one of the other dice regular damage or reroll stuff. So that is Fight Back. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Hidden Motive. 0 resources, blue event. Choose a symbol, then re-roll an opponent's die. If that die just rolled the chosen symbol, remove it. So let's say I name a symbol. I have my opponent re-roll the die, and if it rolls the symbol that I chose, that die gets removed. This could be really useful in against decks that are running a lot of the same symbol on like a die. So we looked at the Fragmentation Grenade yesterday. It's all indirect damage except for the blank. So let's say they have that die on indirect damage. I choose indirect damage. They re-roll that die. It lands on indirect damage. That die then gets removed. Also, if it doesn't actually land on the symbol, it might not be all that bad either. So let's say I say melee damage, and they re-roll it, and it rolls a blank. It doesn't get removed, but also now that die has been blanked out. So Hidden Motive could be pretty interesting. Like I said, especially on cards that have a lot of the same symbol. So, Hidden Motive, we're going to move into our next card. Alright, next up we have the Supply Rack. Equipment Upgrade. Kind of weird that it's an upgrade and not a support, because are the characters really carrying this Supply Rack with them? Possibly. Anyway, so 1 resource. As an action, exhaust this upgrade to reroll any number of the attached character or upgrade dice. So you have this on a character, and you roll them out, they roll badly, you exhaust this, and then re-roll any number of the character or upgrade dice on that character. I don't think it's going to be as necessarily good as the holster. I like that the holster gets to re-roll up to 2 weapons on the attached character. So if you have a character that has like ambush, like a way to ambush them in, like Sabine or possibly Cad Bane, something like the holster could be good on them. The Supply Rack also might work because it does hit character dice and not just weapon dice. So holster hits only weapon dice. This hits both. But then, of course, you're going to have to... It's an additional action to exhaust this and then reroll those dice. While with the holster, as soon as they roll in, they have the option to reroll those 2 dice. And again, if it's an ambushable activated character like Sabine or Cad, you can then use that additional action to resolve damage. So you roll them in, roll, resolve. So I think the holster might be a little bit better, but the Supply Rack might be good in draft. I'm not really sure, but that's the Supply Rack. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have Surprise Attack, 1 resource. Resolve one of your dice showing damage, either ranged, melee, or indirect, increasing its value by 1. So you're paying 1 to get an additional damage, which might not always be bad. So let's say you have an opponent's character, no shields on it, and it's 3 health away from being defeated, and you have a 2 ranged die showing. You can then pay 1 resource, resolve that 1 ranged die, increasing it to 3, and that'll be enough to defeat that character. I think it's going to be kind of situational to use this, because you do have to use this card and spend the resource to resolve the die, and it's only resolving 1 of your dice. So you're not going to be able to resolve your other range damage dice or melee dice or indirect dice alongside this if you use this event. Unless you happen to give this ambush with like swiftness or something like that. But at that point, you're spending 2 resources. You're spending a resource for swiftness and a resource on surprise attack. So that might not be worth it. But again, it might work out to where you have a die showing and it's just 1 less or 1 fewer damage than you need to defeat the character. You can then use surprise attack, increase it by 1, and defeat that opponent's character. So that's surprise attack. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have Targeting Computer, 1 resource. It's an event, red event. Turn a supporter or upgrade die to any side. So pay 1, and you can flip a die. That might not be that great. However, I think it might be beneficial if you were to use this as part of, let's say you have 2 resources. You play something like Tactical Mastery, and then first additional action, you play Targeting Computer, and then you resolve the die that you just flipped. Or if you had a bunch of ranged damage and you have a support or upgrade on a blank, you can flip it and then resolve everything that goes with it. So if you have, let's say, something on a +2, a +1, and then you have a support that's on a blank, pay 1, flip that support to unmodified range damage, and then resolve that range damage. So this could be pretty good as well. So that is the targeting computer. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have Tinker, 0 resources, yellow event. Turn one of your dice to a side showing a value of 1. So for 0, you get to focus something maybe like off of a blank or off of like a side you don't need onto another side with a value of 1. Immediately I can think of if I have a character die or a weapon die that's been blanked out, I can use this to focus that to 1 damage possibly. Or if you combo it with Infamous, I think it could be pretty good where you tap Infamous, give this ambush, turn your die to a value of 1, and then resolve whatever else you have. So let's say you have a bunch of modified range damage, and your character die is on a blank, and they have a 1 range damage on that die. You can use Tinker, turn that to 1 damage, and then also if you, again, use it with Infamous to give this ambush, turn that die to 1, and then resolve all of your range damage dice. So Tinker, I think, can be pretty good. We're going to move into our next card. And final card for today is the Verpine Sniper Rifle. Yellow weapon, 2 resources. I believe this is 2 range damage for a resource according to the Reddit post. So 2 range for a resource plus 2 range, focus, resource, special, and blank. And special deal 2 unblockable damage to a character. So if you don't draft any weapons outside of, like, any good weapons out of your packs, you're given some weapons in here like this Verpine Rifle. So 2 resources, essentially 3 damage sides. So you have that 2 for a resource, the +2, and the special deal 2 unblockable. So this could be, I think, all right in draft. I don't think it's going to be really seen a lot in constructed play when we have just better weapons out there already, like the FLD, which has ambush and redeploy, or the LL30, which is also ambush redeploy, and the stuff like the mortar gun. This, I think, is going to see play probably just in draft, maybe sealed, depending on what you open. But a lot of these cards from this set, I think, are going to be probably decent in draft and maybe not so great outside of draft. I think the idea is that you get your good cards out of your packs and you're just kind of filling in holes with the stuff that you open here. Even though a lot of the stuff I do like in draft format, especially that emulate card, I think that can be fun in constructed, especially if you're playing a deck that has a lot of the same character, like a lot of non-uniques, or you're in a mirror match with somebody else. But that has been the Rivals Draft Pack. There'll be a link again in the description to where you can check out the Reddit posts on these cards. That's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also, if you haven't entered the giveaway for the Ultimate Guard Monolith deck box and 3 packs of Star Wars Destiny, we're doing one from Awakenings, one from Spirit of Rebellion, and one from Empire at War. There'll be a link in the description below for that as well. But again, I want to thank you for watching, and take care.